Welcome to another Optimity webinar, where we are exploring exciting topics in health innovation, cutting-edge technologies, and living well. You are joined by hundreds of people like yourself who are interested in learning more about why and how incentives can help promote healthy habits. Welcome. So for this month's webinar, we wanted to spread the importance of incorporating an effective wellness program that focuses on helping people change their unhealthy habits with the help of incentives. And I'm your host, Tasneem, welcoming you to this community webinar on the important topic of incentivized habit change. Here with me to chat about this topic is our CEO, Jane. Thanks for joining me today on sharing some of our best practices.
Hi.
Okay, so sounds great. A little background about us and our professional experience. Jane spent almost a decade in health management with patients from clinical research. Her expertise are in adherence and helping patients prevent adverse events with daily micro-interactions. And I'm Tasneem. I'm a wellness coordinator at Optimity, creating content for specialized topics for our clients to address, such as chronic health issues. My background is in health policy, and I'm passionate about health equity. My dream is to eliminate social and economic barriers that restrict someone from getting access to the right information and care to obtain their optimal health. As the hundreds of guests arrive, I want to take a moment to go over our housekeeping items to give you the best webinar experience. Please connect to audio using your computer's microphone and speakers, or select Use Telephone after joining the webinar to turn on sound. And as always, all guest lines are muted to avoid background noise. If you have any questions, please type it in and we will get back to you after the webinar. After the webinar, the slides and recording will be sent out to you to share with others. There is one handout from the session. They are downloadable in the tools section. It is a study on motivating the unmotivated to change their behaviors. Now that we've gone over our ground rules, let's begin. At Optimity, we provide a dynamic wellness tool to engage people like yourself in achieving optimal health. In fact, Optimity means the state of being best. So we provide a mobile app that does just that. The app is personalized to you, your job function, your gender, as well as your own health goals. We support you with a robust and holistic health content library, spanning everything from physical exercise, nutrition, mental health, to financial wellness. We also recommend activities to you based on other people like yourself, so people with similar jobs, personalities, and goals. You can access the Pocket Coach via any mobile device or via our website. It is a pocket health coach that syncs with your calendar. It gives you small, fun challenges, which earns you improvements in health and awareness, also gets you points for rewards, and of course, a lot of bragging rights. And today's topic is all about these intrinsic and extrinsic rewards. The reason we provide webinars is because we want to help address some key issues in proactive health coaching, such as low participation, poor adherence, and no adaptation of the program based on the person you are. We provide a fully integrated health coaching solution that turns raw data into insights and helpful daily tips. And we have achieved over 77% in average participation in 2016 and 2017. Our weekly adherence rate is averaged at 43%, which means people are able to use technology consistently and change their lives and habits, bit by bit, every day, every week, leading to better health and sustaining habit change. We adapt the program to popular topics and your interests on the go. So today, we will be sharing our knowledge and giving you useful tips on playing with the levers of habit loops and rewards that you can take back with you to your organization and use yourself, even if you don't yet have Optimity. Population-based wellness programs seek to impact risk factors associated with preventable illnesses by promoting healthy lifestyle choices. Lifestyle behaviors are deeply engraved within us. Making behavior change is difficult and requires discipline and dedication. One way to raise and maintain employee interest in wellness programs is to offer incentives. The best incentive programs are easy to administer and cost effective and encourage employees to take action and sustain positive lifestyle changes over time. Incentives are widely used in a workplace program because they're a simple way to encourage people to adopt healthy habits long enough so that they can start feeling the benefits and convert their desire to be healthy from an extrinsic motivation to an intrinsic one. So to start, let's take a pulse of where you are with rewards, recognition, and incentives. In this quick poll, let us know if you're already implementing some of these or are planning to. Wow, so I'm not a little surprised here. 73% of you said that you're already offering incentives. 9% say they're not, but they're exploring options, and 18% are not offering incentives. Well, this is great. This is pretty much what we thought, 73%. So we hope to impact lots of knowledge and share experience with you today. When you want to engage people in programs, getting people to be actively engaged has always been a challenge. So then how do you get people involved? Well, the two most popular approaches are the carrot and the stick method. According to a study by the Business Review of Western Michigan, they did a study on a company where employers had to move a high deductible health plan and wellness initiative to mitigate the ever increasing cost of coverage. Rather than offer incentives to employees to merely participate in wellness initiatives and set personal health goals, they started to base them on outcomes. There will be a financial repercussion for not meeting goals, also known as the stick method. And the carrot method is when employers offer financial incentives for employers to, for instance, stop smoking, lose weight, or lower their cholesterol, or participate in a disease management program if they have a chronic medical condition such as diabetes or asthma. Incentives include items such as gift cards, extra time off, and the employee paying a small share of health premium. Agents say that they are now seeing employers requiring employees to accomplish personal health goals to receive the incentives. So lowering your cholesterol and reducing your risk for heart disease, and you'll pay 20% of the premium rather than the regular 30%. Fail to do so and you don't get that reward. The emerging trends represent a natural evolution of sorts in employers using wellness to get healthcare costs under control. Companies are encouraging employees to take better care of their health, which results in reduced medical claims that drive up premiums. Employers that have been success with wellness now seek to make future progress by adjusting how incentives are rewarded. It is an evolving process. Over time, employers have learned and are trying to improve how their plan operates. The push comes as employers face another year of higher premiums, according to a study by Mercer. You're going to feel more of the cost if you don't take more of your role in your overall health. Incentives and disincentives are tools that inspire employees to adopt healthier lifestyles. Incentives can be offered for simple activities such as completing health risk assessments or participation in disease management programs. As more wellness programs emerge, the question becomes, which approach is more effective at inspiring behavior change, carrots or the stick? So, on today's agenda, we are exploring the carrot more than the stick. We'll be sharing facts on intrinsic versus extrinsic incentives, how incentives can inspire habit change theory, case studies and examples, AI optimized incentivized approaches, and economics to manage health with proactive approach. Great, let's begin. Jane, would you like to share some of our insights on how you've seen people successfully change their unhealthy habits? Perhaps we can start with some knowledge about rewards and motivation.
Sounds good. So in terms of rewards and motivation, some of you may already know that motivation is a reason that drives someone to do something. So it could be a behavior or an activity. A reward is a completely different animal. It's what you get for doing something rather than the reason for doing it in the first place. In a simplistic way of looking at the difference between motivation and reward is that the motivation generally comes before the behavior, but the reward comes after the behavior. And the reward is not always money. So, what is the distinction between intrinsic and extrinsic rewards? Well, an intrinsic reward is an intangible reward of recognition, a sense of accomplishment, a conscientious satisfaction. So, for example, it's a knowledge that you did something right or you helped someone and made their day better. Because the intrinsic rewards are often intangible, they usually arise from within the person who's doing the activity or the behavior. So, how we think about intrinsic at Optimity is that the reward is very specific and personalized to the person doing the activity or the behavior. An extrinsic reward is an award that is tangible and usually physically given to you for accomplishing something. It's a tangible recognition for one's behavior. And for example, it's a certificate of accomplishment, a trophy, a medal for winning a race, a badge or points, or something, or even a monetary reward. So even all extrinsic rewards are not always monetary. They're usually given to the person after doing the activity. And some of the really interesting facts about extrinsic rewards is that unexpected rewards, random rewards, actually yield better long-term behavior. So today we'll share a lot more about the science towards it and even some tactics. So therefore, in extrinsic rewards means that the reward that's different, that are not stemming from a motivation of a particular person for that activity or the behavior. There's often a tension between intrinsic and extrinsic. So when we design programs and when you implement programs, it's important to really study the dynamic between the two, because if you apply too much extrinsic reward, it actually decreases the power of some of the intrinsic part, because too much extrinsic reward could mean that you have people that are exhibiting the behavior of cheating in order to gain monetary value, and that erodes some of the autonomy and mastery and purpose of intrinsic rewards.
Great. Why don't we illustrate this for a person? Meet Sarah. Sarah is a 36-year-old with 2 kids. She's a little soft around the edges, so she's trying to watch her waistline, which is why she decides she wants to lose around about 50 pounds. So what do you think Sarah did? Well, she bought herself the latest in technology to help her track her progress. In fact, in her first week, she manages to lose a few pounds. But by the second week, the glory of her new gadget has worn off, and by the week 3, she's no longer engaged and regains all the weight she had previously lost. Sarah isn't happy about this. Her physical appearance hasn't changed, so she blames herself for the lack of success. What do you think made it so hard for Sarah to change her habits, Jane?
Well, like Sarah, many of us perform behaviors that are habitual to us. We go through cycles called the habit forming loop, and this loop consists of 3 stages. So it's the cue, the routine, and the reward. And the cue is the initiator of the cycle. Oftentimes, our emotions, our goals, or simply our boredom could trigger us to to perform a certain set of habits. And once completing the habits, there was a physical or emotional reward in it for us. Habitually, we do this to get us into a routine, and this is known as a habit forming loop. So if we take a look back at Sarah, or even for myself, for instance, we have this habit every time we get bored, we're doing some work, we get up or go to the kitchen or get a snack, which could be our reward. So the cue is boredom. The routine could be getting up and going to the kitchen, the office kitchen. And then the reward could be getting a snack. And not because I was hungry, right? This is all because I was bored. So the boredom itself is a cue. And I don't have an alternative activity to satisfy this itch within my system. So this becomes a habit. And this is often what's, holding someone back. So for example, Sarah probably runs through tens, if not hundreds, of these habit loops during a day. And this could happen for everything from sleeping to eating to sitting on the couch to all kinds of things that she doesn't even think about, right? This actually happens not in her big brain, but in her small like the reptilian brain. So what makes it really hard to change habits is not that it's impossible to break, it's just we're hardwired to do them in our system. Uh, Here's a fun fact. 45% of the decisions that we make each day are habit-based. They're intuitive to how we run each day, and they're etched into our subconsciousness. So all we have to do now is kind of change them, right? Make them healthy ones. So for Sarah, in her case, if we can turn her cue of boredom into other healthy activities, such as, okay, her routine could be getting up and walking around the kitchen, but instead of going to get a snack, she could get a glass of water, she could go talk to someone that she likes, giving her other reasons, other types of rewards, and slowly using that cue is called something called substitution theory. And that's the whole reason to get someone hooked into another set of behavior. And once she gets into that set of behavior, she can start snowballing this into bigger change. So today we're going to be sharing the whole experience with Sarah at the center of it. And I do have some news to share about Sarah because she's a real person. She has been performing small changes and behavior loops on herself, and over the last 2 years, she's able to actually lose almost close to 100 pounds. So this has worked for her, but the first step, what we're going to do exploring today, is what are the cues, what are the routines, and what are the substitution for those rewards. So let's start with a little bit of theory. There's a few different models, but the model that we're going to start talking about today is the TTM model. This is also known as the stages of change model. Okay, so this model can assess an individual's readiness to act on a new, healthier behavior. It's actually developed by a couple of researchers. So through their research, they were doing research on why some smokers were able to quit on their own, while others need professional help. And this model has proven to be an effective way of thinking about changing bad habits. It is widely used by social workers, therapists, and psychologists to really understand their patients' behavior. It includes 6 different psychological stages. Actually, I'm going to talk about 5 here. So people are going to progress and learn and adopt and maintain healthy behaviors. These stages are pretty easy to understand. They include the pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. And you'll see that the rewards are useful for action and maintenance. The stages of change model help us understand exactly how to apply the different incentives in a wellness program. Those who exercise regularly are maintainers. They maintain a daily exercise habit because they like how that exercise feels. Because in the end, the exercise itself is part of the reward. The regular exercisers are more likely to maintain a healthy weight, sleep better, better handle stress, participate in more competitive group sports, and get outside more often. And those who regularly do not exercise are the ones that actually depend on the extrinsic rewards to start them on the habit cycle. So the extrinsic rewards for the first time is actually the cue that gets them into this behavior. The intrinsic motivators are not yet activated for the group of people who don't really experience the reward of the exercise itself. So it's important for them to have an alternative reason that's big enough to get them started on the cycle. So speaking of cycles, there has been some changes to this model over some years, where I now talk about a 6-step loop. The habit loop, so now it's seen no longer as a linear process, but as a self-reinforcing loop. This is used in the case of habit change because you can actually drop in and out of any of these stages depending on where you are and depending on your life circumstances. So I'm going to break down each of the stages so that we are all on the same page here. So stage 1, pre-contemplation. At this stage is where an individual does not plan to make any positive changes in the next 6 months. This may be because they're in denial about their current problem, or feel too overwhelmed to deal with it, or are too discouraged by multiple failures of attempts to change. So if you really think about Sarah, she could have been in that stage if she, when she failed the first time, but when she really wanted to make the change, she has already overcome the pre-contemplation stage. So in stage 2 is the contemplation stage. At this stage, the individual starts to consider the advantages of changing. They start to acknowledge that by altering their habits, how that would benefit to them. So they start to visualize the final rewards. But they're spending a lot of time thinking about the downside of doing so as well. So at this stage, this could last a long time, possibly a year or more. And you can think of this as a procrastination stage. For example, an individual begins to seriously consider the benefits of regular exercise, but feels resistant when they think about the time and the effort it's involving. And when the person starts to put together a concrete plan to change, then they've moved on to the next stage. The key to moving on to the next stage is the transformation of an abstract idea to a belief. Okay? So once that they make the mental move towards action, then starts stage 3, which is preparation. At this point, the person starts to make a plan. They start to put a plan in place. The stage is usually quite brief because the motivation is very high. It could be a few days, could be a few weeks. For example, they may book in a session with a trainer or enroll in a nutritional course, or they may buy a new gadget in Sarah's case, or they can get onto, for example, a program like Optimity. And for someone who has a habit problem, so for example, drinking in excess, they may book an appointment with a counselor. For someone who with a tendency to overwork, they may actually start planning ways to take a more realistic schedule. So it really depends on what the goal specific is for that person. Then we move on to stage 4, which is action. And this is when the person has decided on a plan, the individual puts it into action. Typically, this lasts several months. For example, the person should begin attending the gym regularly or overhauling their diet. Stage 4 is a stage where the person's desire for change becomes noticeable to family and friends. So, however, the truth is the change process already began a long time ago. If someone you know seems to have suddenly made a change in their habits, it's probably not so sudden after all. They'll probably have already progressed through stage 1 to 3 first, and you probably just didn't know about it yet. Stage 5 is maintenance. And I actually think this is the hardest part, and this is where most people drop off. After a few months of the action stage, the individual will start to think about how they can maintain their changes. If they're lucky, these changes are already formed in a habit loop. So it has a cue, it has a routine, it has a reward itself. But oftentimes when you don't have a particular cue, so that's when people stop going to the gym, when they haven't linked that into a habit cue, then it's really hard to maintain. So for instance, someone who has adopted the regular habit of working out or a better diet will be vigilant against old triggers, such as eating junk food during stressful times, and make a conscientious decision to protect their new habits. Unless someone who's actively engaged at stage 5, their new habits are liable to come unstuck. So some people who have stuck to their new habits for many months, perhaps even a year or longer, may enter stage 6. The maintenance can be really, really challenging because it entails coming up with new sets of habits and locking that in place. For instance, someone who is maintaining their new going to gym habit may also start by improving their budgeting skills in order to afford their gym memberships. So there's many things, many challenges that face a person when they go into the maintenance stage. Okay, so now that we've covered that, we can really start looking at how we use these hook models in place.
Yeah, so like in practice, when I work with clients, they are using technology to help build these loops and hook their population into habit change. We know that with Sarah, she wasn't successful in the start because she didn't have the right triggers motivating her to make the small changes. She just jumped into a new lifestyle without gradually building up the changes in her habit. Likewise, her initial success only came with the glory of the new technology she bought to her to get fit. But since there was no new triggers or incentives she was receiving from her technology platform, she got bored, she lost the interest, and she fell back into her old habits. There needs to be a motivator to keep going, to be intrinsic or extrinsic. And another, it's like receiving your health grade after completing the HRA. That becomes an intrinsic motivator to get Sarah fit. She found that having a health score there to constantly being updated to reflect her progress was a great motivator to continue on her journey to make healthy changes to her behaviors. The initial hook that really helped Sarah get interested was the intrinsic reward. Optimity uses incentives because we know how hard it is for people to get started with healthy habits. So with incentives, it's an external motivation to help. We know that it's not a long-term solution for maintaining habits, but it's a start. Rewards serve as a way to positively reinforce people for the actions that they take. When a reward is given each time after a good behavior, anticipation fades away, making the behavior seem dull in a routine. However, when the reward is given at unpredictable manners, we start repeating behaviors for the thrill of the chase. With both the models we talked about earlier, they both acknowledge that change is hard and it will happen in small steps. But up to me, you can use the daily action of micro habits to make these gradual small steps into long-lasting changes. And since we're such social creatures, we crave belonging, connection, and acceptance from other people. As such, rewards are very powerful in encouraging repeated behaviors. But you know what else is powerful? Getting kudos from a friend. It's another incentive to continue on with healthy habits, which is why competition is a powerful social motivator. It establishes your status within the community and it gives users a good sense of self-esteem. Apps that use many gamification concepts such as leaderboards and user challenges to achieve this, the reward of winning is highly variable because your rank is not only dependent on your performance, but also on how others perform. For the user, this causes a strong craving to reach the top. In fact, studies show that that gaming found that fear of losing in a competition is an extremely powerful motivator for users to get better next time. The hook model is a great way to look at how technology can help with long-term healthy habits. It's important to encourage good behaviors by giving timely triggers or notifications that have a clear call to action. We also need to give a user the motivation they need to want to perform the action through incentives, be it a financial incentive or an emotional one like ranking on the leaderboard or even kudos and recognition.
Yeah, the hook
Jane,
model
what?
state, pardon me?
Oh no, I was just going to ask you, what do you think are good triggers?
Yeah, and I wanted to jump in to say that the hook model stated that in order for habits to be formed, there needs to be a really good trigger that leads to the action for the habits that we perform. So when the user take action, the reward encourages them to behave to repeat the action in the future. By repeating the action multiple times, the user starts to invest, right, in the process. And getting the users through the hook cycle again and again help the users form habits and increase their long-term engagement with either a technology product or with a particular routine. And when starting to form new habits, triggers are often as important as the technology itself, like the product itself. So with Optimity, a lot of the push notifications are very personalized as reminders, and these are created in a way because they play as triggers for people. We can't always rely on boredom to be a really good trigger in the workplace because oftentimes not most people are not bored, right? They're busy, and the busyness and the stress are very negative triggers for lots of unhealthy behaviors. And what we're trying to do is create a break, a recess, something that's positive. So part of the notification or even events in real life or virtual create a break for someone to, one, be mindful of what they're doing, and then two is receive some sort of positivity from other people. So the likes, the cheers, the recognition, and many companies have done modification to their physical environment because the sound, the imagery, the smells are all triggers for people and triggers for routines. So for example, there's a couple studies that we're linking in here, and I think they're fascinating for anyone that's interested in looking at ways to change their office and for their teams. One is about Google around food arrangements and changing the snack choices for consumption. So what they did is that they took everything that's unhealthy and sugary and they just made it slightly harder to access. So they put them in a drawer behind a cupboard, within the fridge. All the sugary pops were within the sliding drawer, so you have to open an extra drawer to get to them. And then they put at eye level all the healthy things, right? All the fruit, all the water, all the things that would become easier. And guess what? Even those small changes made a huge difference in how people chose their snack choices. So it's definitely worthwhile, especially if you have a micro kitchen or some sort of snack program at your office, to change the physical arrangement of that, because just making the healthy things slightly easier to reach than the unhealthy things will change behavior. The other one that I want to quote too is about the social impact of reactions and others. And this is talking about Facebook's reaction feature, because it changes how people engage with that. And they are social cues are great triggers for people to engage with technology products. So for those of you out there that are interested in it, those studies are available for you. I also want to touch upon some of the admin sites where the machine learning and AI makes it really easy to customize content that's relevant to the individual based on their needs and goals, creating intrinsic incentives that carry out these habits and patterns, making it easier to perform because they have personal meaning to you and will actually add value to your health and life. So how some companies are using this is creating segments based on characteristics, based on age, gender, location, and then suggesting content that is linked to a trigger within that. So how you can do that even using notifications and social announcements is targeting a particular segment. So for example, is there a particular activity someone like Sarah could link their future behavior on, right? So every time this happens, you're triggered on this new routine. And then could you send it to a particular segment that this works for? So there's different examples for this, especially if you have work segments. So we really think about the people that are working in a different environment. They have different triggers than we do. They have different breaks. They have different social communities. So can you link that to a particular thing? So perhaps after every lunch and learn, there's a routine. Everyone takes a lap around the office. That would be a really healthy way for people to do different types of activities. Is there a way that after every morning when tech teams do their stand up, they also do 10 jumping jacks since they're all standing up anyway. So they're very creative ways for people to link social activities to a particular trigger and using notifications on the platform to do so. We wouldn't be complete if we didn't talk about monetary rewards as well. So one of the simplest triggers to get right is rewards. Keeping it fresh, keeping it relevant, and adding custom ones. Tailor them based on geography and persona. And we usually recommend strategies that focus on getting the most popular, so most high usage vendors on here and having a good combination. And remember that offering custom rewards is really important because people value different things. Folks may value half a day off or even company branded t-shirts more so than they value gift cards. Health and energy is critical to the productivity and innovation that's kind of essential for any organization's future. So the leaders who are actually healthy and fit can devote more time and energy to growth of an organization, and the employees who are free from mental and physical conditions take fewer sick days and are more productive and help strengthen the economy, right? Even for seniors, those who remain physically and mentally active are more likely to live independently. So therefore, we need to weave disease prevention into the everyday fabric of our lives, including where we work, live, and play. And by really focusing on proactive prevention, it changes the equation. Oftentimes, because the economics of the cost, 20% of the population I mean, there's two ways to look at this graph, right? The older way of looking at it is like, oh wow, 20% of the population is generating 80% of the cost. Let's focus all of our energy on them. Let's focus all of our dollars on them. And I think that's important to kind of address it, but it's a very reactive approach. Actually, the better way and the more modern way of looking at this is a proactive prevention, because if you actually get the people who are in the green to yellow to orange category engaged in habit change, they may never even end up in the red category. So it's a really smart way of looking at it. And also, it's a really easy way to see how it may really pay off. So did you know that most healthcare costs are preventable? So 70 to 90% of the healthcare expenses are preventable. Many of these costs are because people are making unhealthy choices, are taking unnecessary risk about their health. Nationwide, chronic disease costs more than $1 trillion in loss of productivity. And this really means that promoting healthier behaviors early and proactively can help for any organization. Many employers are expecting returns on investment for every dollar spent on preventive services, and changing our habits ultimately will help us each as individuals as well. Your work culture sets a tone for your employees, and as a supportive work environment, many managers are reinforcing the health strategy with incentives. And today, when we work on the incentives, we're working on the overall proactive prevention part of it too. So congrats to you all. When we do population analytics on Optimity, we also look at the power users, because if you look at the power users, you can see how people are motivated. And if you relate this back to some of the population graphs, the bell curve, the population bell curve, which you may have seen before, it really shows that the people with the lower health risk assessment grade are actually, especially the ones on the medium side, are doing more activities. They are more intrinsically motivated to do more activities. And when you look at how incentives inspire habit change, you can see that there is a correlation between activity levels and incentives, both on the points on the leaderboard level, so those are more intrinsic, and also the extrinsic ones based on the reward points. And we're seeing that the highest usage is between the people between 30 and 50, but it's not significantly more than any of the other age brackets. So when we study the overall population statistics of it all, we can see that combining intrinsic and extrinsic rewards and combining it with a habit loop will make changes on anybody's life across the whole population. So before we dive into that, we're going to do a couple of other polls. One is about what intrinsic habit loops, because we just want to make sure that we're reinforcing the learnings here. So we're going to launch a quick poll here and just let us know what intrinsic reward habit loops are you likely to try with your team next, based on what we talked about today. And you can definitely select more than one. Perfect. So we're seeing that people are thinking recognition, and that's absolutely right. So recognition is almost 70% trying that. Health challenges, definitely, because it's a really great way to keep things fresh, and you can run them on a quarterly basis or even monthly. And the competition aspect of it is very, very important. And I was worried for a moment there because in real life events was starting at the beginning at 0, but it's actually one of the most important things because the social connection between the team members is a great intrinsic motivator and is one of the strongest. And then having an HRA grade itself, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's when we were trained when we were kids and we get report cards. So when we see those numbers and we see the numbers tick up, is also a consistent, almost ruler to help us feel that sense of progression and to continue to make additional habits. So on the flip side, we're going to do another poll, and this will be the last one that we will share with everyone. It's the extrinsic reward. So out of the extrinsic reward basket, which one would you think would work best for your team? Again, you can select multiple ones here as well. Perfect. And this is really interesting as well because gift cards are probably the easiest ones to administer because there's so much technology, including Optimity. A lot of platforms are out there are helping with that. Days off, flex time, very important for people, especially as they get older, as they become more tenured within the corporation. People find that very valuable. And then benefits dollars, and then lastly, corporate awards. But all of these are about 30%. So it's exciting to see everyone wanting to take action and try new things out with their teams. So that's wonderful. So we're going to get back into the presentation and talk more about some of the applications in real life.
Okay, so it's important to give people what they want on mobile, where they can take it to go, bring them together into a community experience. The activities are quite small, so micro activities, all the activities that we share with you are anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute long, especially when it comes to managing or preventing health issues like mental health or stress or even physical activities. You want the activities to have immediate results, like being aware perhaps of what you're eating and calming yourself down will address both physical but also the emotional health. Behavior change is difficult, especially over long term, and voluntary programs to encourage lifestyle modifications are not consistently effective. With traditional wellness programs, it's shown that once the newness and curiosity about a health promotion or wellness program wears off, participation drops off in a dramatic way. Which is why Optimity is different. We make it so that there is continuous engagement by allowing the app to sync with the personal or work calendars, as well as your personal devices like your Fitbits. We've gamified the experience to make the process more fun and challenging so that we can keep the engagement high. The modernization of the workforce also means the modernization of how you support and manage and train that workforce. I think of a wellness as a way of training, micro-training your people. It helps them take on habits that improve their own personal productivity, helps them be less likely to get sick, especially from chronic health issues, which really racks up the cost. It also has a lot to do with building a community, a stronger culture, which helps you retain talent, have happier people, and a positive spiral up to a great, well-run organization. We can track measurements for you, for instance, measuring the change of a mental well-being over a 90-day period. Typically, we see tightening of clusters of groups, so you can really look at how it has changed for managing stress levels, for instance, or how people are rating themselves on the following. So like on energy, on posture, hydration, and so on. But we can see that stress and mental health is one of the most important things that we deal with at any workplace. We have proven results in implementing wellness programs that reduce drug claims. Absenteeism lead to achieve RIO between $1.50 and $6.50 for every dollar spent on wellness. So our customers are able to run more initiatives faster and easier and are effortlessly coordinating between multiple sites. Our cohesive wellness portal provides you with a database to drive your decision on how to adopt your programs to get better outcomes. So with some of our clients, like PwC or CST consultants, in which each of them, we have seen dramatically change the way they drive wellness and reports RIO. We also have new case studies for Line Drive, City of Marble Falls, and a tech company called Portable Intelligence. Jane, could you share more about them?
Yeah, sure. So every year we publish new case studies, and this year we're just coming out with our newest ones. And I'm seeing a lot of trend towards people on quantifying outcomes, quantifying participation, and tracking engagement year over year. So some of these companies have been with us for multiple years. So for example, with Line Drive, they're still at 80% engagement on year 2. So I think that's really interesting. Reducing attrition, promoting firm culture, a lot has come up this year, especially with financial wellness and also with community. So people are recognizing the sense of community and culture. So Optimity itself has now changed some of even our communication to the employees, less as a wellness program, but really more as an employee success program, helping to manage habits and helping to manage everything from financial habits to stress management to physical activities, even though still about 80% of our content is focused on physical activity. Not only do we help companies out there that are private companies, we also help the public. So for example, we included a study with the City of Marble Falls and really working on different segments of population there. And we've heard really interesting stories from engaging kind of the forgotten segments. So for them, it could be the police department that never participates in anything because they're trapped in their car and they have different motivation. So really thinking through like an incentives program, a way to hook them in, but also to keep them and making it work for their routines has been a lot of the interesting work that we're now communicating through these case studies. And then even for smaller teams like PI, it's really interesting because then they're now able to run programs and be able to give the best of the best in terms of research for their teams, even though we're not dealing with teams of hundreds or thousands of people. So you can find all of these. They will be published on our website very shortly. So I wanted to share these with you. Our mission has still been focused on targeting the high impact issues. So using dynamic assessments, using AI and machine learning to gain insights and recommendations so that even every month, really with additional firms that are coming onto this, you're getting the group learning, because the more we're experiencing, the more we can kind of share across all the different spectrums and getting that group learning. So we really, really love the impact of that, because for us, it's really about helping the individual make healthier choices and stay on their path of happiness and fulfillment while helping the organization to drive more productivity and cohesion.
Great. So how about we summarize what we went together today? We talked about how intrinsic versus extrinsic incentives help to change habits, why incentive-based programs are a popular tool, the different stages of change for habit formation, the different cues, the triggers in the routine. We talked about the proactive and prevention versus a reactive care to health, and we discussed use cases and studies. So if you're interested in learning more about how using incentives to help change unhealthy habits based on your population, please do reach out to us at engage@myoptimity.com or to me directly at tasneem@myoptimity.com. Thank you and have a great rest of the day.